Welcome to the Young Conversations podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Allison. If you're all about comfort zones and sticking to the status quo, this is not your show. Each episode features global CXOs, founders, and fearless industry innovators sharing untold stories of challenging norms, breaking barriers, and redefining success and leadership while transforming lives, businesses, and entire industries along the way. These exceptional quote unquote human beings share in a candid, unfiltered conversation of how adversity became an advantage, how doubt fueled drive, and how the unconventional path led to an unshakable sense of purpose. One unique part of every episode is my brainchild experience of the unword effect, where guests choose three words beginning with un that hold deep personal, professional, and leadership significance. These words aren't just a creative twist, they offer a lens into the evolution of a leader. Hey there! Thanks for joining us on the Young Conversations podcast. I'm Dr. Allison, and I'm excited to share what's coming up today. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that touches all aspects of our lives: betrayal. Whether it's broken trust with a colleague, a partner, or even within ourselves, betrayal can strike like a lightning bolt, disrupting everything we thought was solid. But what happens after? How do we move beyond the shock and rebuild not just our relationships, but our entire sense of self and purpose? Our guest, Dr. Debbie Silber, founder of the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute, knows this journey firsthand. After experiencing profound betrayal, she transformed that pain into a roadmap for healing and growth, something she calls the 5 stages of betrayal recovery. It's in the wreckage of betrayal that something new can rise, if you have the courage to choose yourself. This conversation uncovers how confronting deep pain becomes a catalyst for growth that reshapes every part of our lives. So before we get started, take a moment and ask yourself, have you experienced betrayal in your life? And are you ready to stop surviving and start breaking through? This is your moment. Stay stuck in the story or break through it. Which will it be? Hello, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the Young Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Allison, and today I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Debbie Silber. She is the founder of the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute and the creator of National Forgiveness Day that is recognized on September 1st every year. First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I loved hearing that you're the creator of National Forgiveness Day. Well, obviously, it fits perfectly with what you're all about. How did that come about?
Well, you don't study something like betrayal or forgiveness unless you need to. So I've been in business 33 years, health, mindset, personal development. I had a really painful betrayal from my family. And then I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. It happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house, looked at the two experiences, thinking, okay, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, but what else? And realized that it was always about everybody else. Never took my needs seriously. I wasn't even on my own sort of to-do list. So I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So there wasn't a book or a course or a program that I could find to help me heal. So I decided to study it at the PhD level. Enrolled in a PhD program, did a study truly just to help me heal and help my clients and be there for my kids in the way I needed to. 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Wow. And National Forgiveness Day, I think,
Mhm.
is so beautiful because I think it gives people a moment to stop and reflect
Mhm.
on what maybe has happened to them. And I think it also gives us, we're all human and we're not perfect. And so, in some way, we may have maybe not as severely as betrayal, but we may have hurt someone in some way. So I really think that's a beautiful way to stop and reflect. So when I read that in your bio, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I thought that was a beautiful thing to do.
Thank
Before we dive into that, I love to kick off my podcast uh, with for new listeners and viewers, where I discuss the unword effect. And
Mhm.
the unword effect is where I give my guests an opportunity to think of three words that start with a prefix of "un" that have really influenced their professional path, their personal growth, and their leadership evolution. And what's really interesting about those parentheses around the "on" is it kind of gives us a mind shift to think about what possibly has held us back. And looking at these words can help people actually propel forward. And I had you think about these words before our podcast, and we went over them, and they are extremely impactful. If you could talk to us, what your journey was like through that reflection process, and
Mhm.
then I would love for you to go into each of those words individually for us.
Yeah, sure. So the words were unexpected, unhealed, and unimaginable. And when it comes to betrayal, that's exactly what happens. So when we're talking about unexpected, betrayal is the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And what this means is without our awareness or consent, someone chose to break that rule. So it's completely unexpected because this was the person or these were the people we trusted the most. So when this is the person or these are the people that break that very sense of safety and security that they gave us, it's completely unexpected, out of the blue. We have trusted this person, these people completely. So it is a shock to the body, mind, and heart, which
Oh,
makes
sure.
betrayal a very different type of experience, which was the first discovery. Happy to get into that after. The second one is that it's unhealed. Very often, people walk around with an unhealed betrayal. And it's the classic way to see an unhealed betrayal. We see it in health and work, in relationships. In relationships, we'll see an unhealed betrayal in two ways. The first is repeat betrayals. The face has changed, but it's the same thing. And we say, what the heck? Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in that it's your opportunity. There's a profound lesson waiting to be learned. The lesson may be just understand, get it already, that you are lovable, worthy, and deserving. Understand that you need better boundaries in place, whatever it is. Until and unless you get that, you're going to have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. The other way we see it in relationships is the big wall goes up. We keep everyone at a distance. We think it's coming from a place of healing. It's not. It's coming from fear. We are unwilling to risk that level of vulnerability. We'd rather keep everyone away than take that chance in being hurt again. So unhealed also means in health. We can go to the most well-meaning, amazing doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. And at the root of it is an unhealed betrayal. We see that all the time. We see it at work, right? It's unhealed. You deserve that raise or promotion, but you've lost your confidence. You're afraid to ask. Or you want to trust your boss, your coworker, your collaborative partner, but the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do you trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? So unhealed is absolutely part of what we see in betrayal. The good news is you can heal from all of it. That was the third discovery. I'm hoping we can get to that.
Oh,
The
yes.
unimaginable is because this is I only imagine, and from the people that we've studied, hundreds of thousands, the only thing that I've heard is worse, and thankfully I've never experienced this, is loss of a child. So this is one of the most painful of the human experiences, because this was, like I said, this was the person we gave our greatest love and trust to. So, unimaginable pain. And our life is now compartmentalized into two camps: before it happened, after it happened. It creates a complete and total psychological earthquake.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, a
Yeah.
shock to the body, mind, and soul.
Absolutely, it does. It's almost an out of body experience, like you said, that you
Yeah.
just can't believe. It's such an incredible shock.
Hmm. Hmm.
Can you share with us? I really am thrilled that you were able to use these words in such a descriptive way in how someone could recognize this type of betrayal and how they could be feeling. Would you mind making this a bit personal with you and your journey of what each of these words represent for you as you were coping, dealing, going through the shock of the betrayal that you went through.
Yeah. Think about it. It's like all of the people I trusted and leaned on and counted on betrayed me.
Hmm.
That's a powerful story, right? And I could have
Very.
been the poster child for betrayal, but like, what does that give you?
Right.
The story we have. Here's the biggest challenge that I see. Our story is so powerful, and because we don't know there's anything better, we hang on to dear life for our, with our story. And if people had a taste, a sample of what life could be with a different story, we wouldn't hang on to it for a minute. Again, that's the third discovery, which I'll share. But I remember a study participant saying, you know what it feels like? It feels like every negative emotion you can experience, getting punched in the gut and losing a child in a crowd all at the same time. It's absolutely
And
shocking.
that must be that unexpected that you
Oh, yeah.
can't believe, right?
Mhm.
That's the unexpected. When I you and I talked previously before this podcast, and
Mhm.
when you gave me your words,
Yeah.
unexpected, I really think is the essence
Mhm.
without right now getting into your research, but
Mhm.
just in keeping this in more layman's terms for the moment,
Yeah.
it's really it's like the essence of the unexpected and the shock, but how could this particular person,
Mhm.
persons, could just, you know, get me to that inner core.
Well, it's
Uh,
like someone takes a mask and pulls it right off. You did not
right.
see it coming. You had no idea. You were abiding by the spoken or unspoken rules and assuming that the other person was too.
Sure. Now, how would you feel in your experience? I'm just going to take these words a little bit out of order. Was the unimagined, because you have the unexpected. How would you feel the unimagined and the unexpected? Because they seem like they would have similar feelings, inner feelings. Are there any differences in your opinion through your experiences that you could share that when someone is kind of in that moment?
Yeah. Yeah, this is unimaginable because it so greatly differs from the plan you signed up for. Like, let's say
Right,
you're even betrayed as a child. The expectation is, I'm the kid, you're the parent, you'll protect me. And when the
right.
parent doesn't, it's a complete and total shock. Or even
Absolutely.
when someone is taking advantage from a position of authority, the expectation is, and the sort of the unspoken rule is, I'll trust you, you'll help or take care or whatever, not violate in any way. So the unimaginable is, I imagined that the agreement was what it would be. and
Which would
and
kind of go to the expectations, right? Like we have the expectations of what a husband should be, what a
Mhm.
wife should be, what our parents should be and do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you definitely do. But the there's a certain expectation, and then you never imagined a breach of that trust, a
Right,
breaking of that code.
right.
That you had no idea. You never ever even thought this would be the life you'd live, or an experience you'd have. It was something that you may have heard other people experience. Never you, never from that person you gave 100% trust to.
I absolutely agree with you, and I would love to get into with you. I was thinking about this before today, and I've been thinking about it since I have my own betrayal experiences that you and I talked about. And you've done something incredible that a lot of people are not able to do without some really hard work and strength. And I hope you can add a lot of nuggets for people who are going to be listening and viewing
Yeah.
this podcast. Of you were in just an awful place. And how did you rise above? And I'm not saying that in a flick of a switch, because I know that was in no way like that for you. So only due to our time frame is why I'm phrasing it that way.
Mm.
Um, to where you created an institute and a method to help other
Yeah.
people get out of that situation. Can you start your story?
Yeah, sure. It wasn't an option for me to stay
Mhm,
stuck. The
mhm.
I had no idea what healing was going to look like. I do remember a moment though, going through the study and saying, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everybody with me. I think a part of it is
You're
I'm
not
a
gonna take them down with you, you're taking them with you. I love that switch. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
So I think a part of it is I'm a highly sensitive empath and integrity is my highest value. So it wasn't even enough for me to heal and heal my family. That wasn't even enough. It was almost like the injustice was so all consuming that the only way I could get out of that pain was to know that I could help countless other people. So that was a definitely a driving factor that I had no idea how I was going to do at the time. But I guess I've sort of trained myself over time to just be like this, where I have an ability to to assess the pain I'm in and what I get from it, and the pain of the what's unfamiliar and unknown. And I
Mhm.
did two TEDx talks, and I think in the first one, Stop Sabotaging Yourself, I talk about how when the pain of where you are becomes greater than the fear of the unknown, you jump. And it really is that's the case. So if you look at what you have, and that's all you're going to have, and then you look at, well, I don't know what this will be, but it's got to be better. I've trained myself to move towards what I don't yet see, because the only
Can I
known
stop you
familiar is
right
what I
there,
have.
Debbie? That you brought, I don't want to miss that point. That was
Hmm.
really beautiful when you just talked about sabotage.
Hmm.
Because I think that is what we tend to do,
Hmm.
even no matter how advanced you are in your professional career or in your mind, we allow this betrayal
Hmm.
to win over us, and we begin to sabotage ourselves
Hmm.
through that process. And I'm real thank you for sharing that, because that speaks to me a lot, as I was just as I was getting over, or not getting over, but really coping with my betrayal,
Hmm.
was I was allowing it to sabotage. So there's that part of me that was allowing to do that.
Well, think about how much power we give the experience when we do that. And,
Yeah,
and the thought of that's where my power is going and that's where my health is going, because our health plummets. We
sure.
suppress our immune system, everything that goes along with it. That's where we sabotage any level of success we can have, because we're just consumed with an experience that happened that we can't change. So I've gotten so used to the idea that just because it's unfamiliar doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It's only unfamiliar. And and this is the biggest trap that people experience, because they stay with that familiar known, even if it's causing deep grief and pain, only because it's familiar. So just like anything else in your life that's been unfamiliar, you do it and it becomes familiar. I would rather take that chance than stay with that familiar known any day of the week.
that part right there, in my opinion, is easier said than done.
Mhm.
And let me ask you this question. Right there, is that how you came up with your 5
Mm-mm.
steps? Okay.
No. Yeah.
Okay. So let's wait before we go on the 5 steps. Let's focus on that part because I think how you were able to focus on that inner strength to get to that point. Can you share a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it wasn't an option to stay stuck. I didn't
Mhm.
know how I was gonna pay for this PhD. I didn't know how I was gonna manage my time. I had 4 kids, 6 dogs, I had a business. I didn't have the luxury of checking out. I just didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the absolute need to move through this was the driving factor. That was it. But it was because I just said, "Okay, I'm gonna be the guinea pig here. Whatever the study is showing that's working, I'll do. Whatever it's showing that's not helping, I'm not gonna do." So, being willing was one of the greatest gifts I could have given myself.
Yeah. That's
Being
good.
willing to move through it, and then the 3 discoveries just happened because I was doing the work. The first was that I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma. I'd been through death of a loved one, I'd been through disease, and I was like, "Mm-mm, betrayal feels different for me." I didn't want to assume it was the same for everyone, so I asked them, "If you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you?" Unanimously, they said it's so different, and here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the
Mm.
entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when we lose someone we love, we grieve, we're sad, we mourn the lost, life will never be the same. We don't question the relationship. We don't question our ability to trust. We don't question our sanity. With betrayal, we do. We do. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma that requires a different way to heal. That was the first discovery. The second one was that there's actually this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post betrayal syndrome. And we've had over 100,000 people take our post betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. A few things about that. We've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, "Is there anything else you'd like to share?" And people write things like, "My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust." My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. So we know you can't count on time. You can't even count on a new relationship to heal it until and unless you intentionally and deliberately heal it. It will follow you around into your work and your health and into your relationships. The good news is you can heal from all of it, which was the third discovery. So I'm happy to share the stats from the second discovery if you want to hear the symptoms, or go right into the third. You tell me.
I would I do want to make a comment on the second one.
Mhm.
I think that's really important to that you said that time
Mm-mm.
doesn't heal it
No.
because it there are and I'll give just an example. I could watch something on TV and wish that my situation was different.
Mhm.
And my betrayal came from family. And so I could look at a happy family on TV and it will come back into my mind. However, it comes back into my mind very differently through the healing that we will
Mhm.
talk about. Uh to where I it yes, I wish things were different. Uh but I don't know if my life would really be as fulfilled as it is right now. And being able to make that shift that I'm sure we'll kind of get into, but I think that's really a great way for you to say, to not put that there's you didn't have the luxury to sit and wallow in this. You had to move forward.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a great testament to let people know. And then I think it's also important for people to also know it's not going to completely just erase, but
Mhm.
you can cope very differently and live a very different life even after that betrayal had happened.
Yeah, well, more than cope, you can use it as the launch pad to your transformation.
Yeah,
That's
beautiful.
trauma well served. So that
Beautiful.
is absolutely what it's a setup for, if you use it in that way. But just to speak to the symptoms, and like I said, happy to share them if you want to hear it, but just
Yeah,
to
please.
show it in a quick story. We had a woman in our community in her mid 80s. She had a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. And she had a 70 plus year gut issue from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like one of those kinds of things. 2 weeks in our program, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. So what I'm sharing is you can have, and like I said, happy to share so many more, but these are symptoms not because you're getting older, not because it's just general stress, because of an unhealed betrayal. So you can go to the most well-meaning, amazing digestive experts. I'm friends with many of them, and they can put you on a beautiful protocol. But if you don't heal what's at the root of it, you're only hacking away at the leaves. You're only medicating or suppressing the symptoms.
Well, and I agree with I 100% agree with you because there are internal systems that stress can cause, betrayal
Mm-hmm.
can cause, and you need to pay attention to what it is your body and mind is telling you because it is telling you something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially in a betrayal,
Mhm.
abusive, or any other type situation is causing such trauma to your body, it's how it reacts.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so being able to understand and acknowledge that is happening. And of course, there is help for people. And I will make sure that your information is relayed when this podcast launches. So is this a good time to transition into your five
Sure.
stages of betrayal? Because I thought they were extremely interesting, and I certainly had some. I love how I love for you to go into them, and they're also really good stages, I think, for people to
Mhm.
understand and to recognize in maybe whatever stage they are in, maybe
Mhm.
identifying with their own betrayal, if that's personal betrayal, or you mentioned corporate type betrayal with their job,
Mhm.
or feeling some other partner type betrayal in a business relationship. So I love for us to start diving into that.
Sure. So it's what I certify all of our PBT coaches in. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. Here's a boiled down version of it. So stage one is before it happens. And if you can imagine four legs of a table, the four legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I found with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual feeling and being. So if a table only has two legs, it's easy for that table to topple over. That's us. That's not suggesting that if you're not paying attention to those two legs, you will be betrayed, but it's a setup for a big fall.
Sure, sure.
Stage two, shock, trauma, D Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. And this is the breakdown of the body, mind, and worldview. You've just gotten the news that changes your life forever. You've ignited the stress response. So you're now headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You can't understand what you just learned. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern you that prevent chaos. Trust this person, don't go there. These are the rules. And in one earth shattering moment or series of moments, it all crashes and burns. The bottom has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage three. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Where do I go? Who can I trust? Here's the trap though. Stage three, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. And here's why. And I really invite everybody to picture, could this be where you're at? Because there's a really good chance you are. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things start to happen. The first thing is we start getting all of those small self benefits, secondary gain. We get our story. We get, right? Like my story, I was betrayed by all the people I counted on, right? We get, we get sympathy from everyone we tell our story
Mm-hmm.
to. We get to justify staying stuck. We don't have to learn how to trust again, like all that stuff. And because we're not getting much else, we take it, right? So we plant deeper roots. We don't even realize we're doing that. And now because we're here longer than we should be, the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting people and circumstances and even new relationships to confirm, yep, this is where we belong. Like here's where we join a lame support group and we will sabotage our healing because we found our people.
Right.
Here's
Exactly.
where,
Exactly.
here's where we may see a therapist who's not highly skilled in betrayal and will feel heard, validated, understood. It's actually solidifying our spot in stage 3. We're not an inch closer to stage 4 every single time we end a session. And so we stay. Here's where we're so afraid of outgrowing our betrayer who has no intention of changing. So we sabotage our healing because we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer. And because we're so miserable, it gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because we're so unhappy, but we have to work, we have to get through our day. Right here, we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So right here, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, to numb, avoid, and distract. So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, or that numbing in front of the TV, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? They look at me like I have 2 heads. They say, it happened 20 years ago.
Totally.
All they did was lock themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to stage 1 and 2 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Because stage 3, I can see people staying in a really long time.
For life.
And I will tell you, I stayed in it for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed in it for 10 years. I was functioning. I was very functioning, but I stayed in it. And I stayed in it not because of what people were telling me. That wasn't the thing. It was more of what I was telling myself and the records that I bought into.
Exactly.
And that was my situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that really affected me personally, and that affected me business wise.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody knew it. So, but I was very functioning in the space. Did I enjoy it? No, not at all. I mean, it's a horrible, gooey place to be. But in my situation, and I don't know if that, I understood stage 1 for me, and I understood stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
And for stage 3, for
Mm-hmm.
me, I was still constantly trying to seek the approval or the attention
Mm-hmm.
of the betrayal.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Does that sort of fit into still stage 3 in your opinion?
Oh, it's absolutely, because
Yes.
we're not healed. So we're
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
it's got to be us. Let me try harder. Let me do more.
Yes.
And really
Yeah.
what we're winding up doing is we're sabotaging our healing. We're suppressing and medicating the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. I didn't share them. Happy to later. And
Yeah.
all we're doing is living a stage 3 life. We have stage 3 thoughts. We're living a stage 3 life. So we're focused on the why. Why did this happen? What's wrong with me? Am I not enough of this, that, the other thing? So let me be more of this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
And it's
Beautiful.
a stage 3 setup.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Mhm.
I don't want to lose the thought that you're having with the symptoms. Is this a good place to share those?
Yeah, sure. And
Okay.
then I want to be sure I get you out of stage 3 into stage 4 and 5. So now
Okay.
imagine Over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country's represented. As much as I'm going to share the symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. So think about what a loss of personal power would do. 80% are hypervigilant. Your nervous system is completely dysregulated. It's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. So your body believes it's right back there at D-Day. The most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. I mentioned earlier, 45% have a digestive issue. The most common mental symptoms. Think about your workday when this is what you're going through. 78% are overwhelmed. 68% can't focus. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. Right? So now just imagine that. You can't concentrate or focus. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. And you're supposed to show up at work every day. You're supposed to raise your kids, do whatever it is you need to do. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And you're bouncing back and forth between those two all day long, which is exhausting. I'll just read a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. Think about what an inability to trust would do at work, in your relationships. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. That's the big wall going up. 67% do that. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but don't know how. Now, I just want to close this out by saying the craziest part about that is, you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers
Oh,
are
no. No, these are significant numbers.
They're not even representative of a recent betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
These symptoms could be from your parent who did something awful, from that partner who broke your heart in high school, whatever it is. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember, they may not even be alive. And here we are decades later with these symptoms because we didn't deliberately and intentionally heal them.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And usually it is something that did happen in an earlier, and then this later betrayal is just you're just recognizing it from what it looked like before. And now it's compounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just another experience.
It's just exactly.
Which is completely, one of the classic signs that it's unhealed. And so this is when you're dealing with you're dealing with these symptoms, you're really playing like this game of whack-a-mole where you're tamping down one symptom just for another to show up. You're unhappy, you're miserable, you're having repeat experiences. Life kind of stinks. And this is a stage 3 life until you move into stage 4 and 5.
How did you, in your situation, before we move on, because how or what is a way for you that that you knew that you were getting out of stage 3 and beginning to touch into stage 4? Because what was that experience like for you?
It's a very, moving into stage 4 is a very, not necessarily lonely, it's a very personal time. It's also one of the biggest shifts in our relationships because we've outgrown the old. It's really similar to if you've ever moved, you think about it. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's this sort of hopeful excitement, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take those things that don't represent the version of you you're now ready to become. And there's actually a spot as people move from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. That lame support group, you're done. That the therapist who doesn't understand betrayal, you realize you're staying stuck. The betrayer who's not changing, you're done. So it's a very actionable time, but not action oriented around the problem. Action oriented around who you want to become. So it's very exciting.
Great. That's great. I love that. So that's not action in your opinion. That's you beginning to see a bit of the light coming through, and it's your openness to step into that transformation part.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting because we have so many members within the PBC Institute who leave stage 3 and into stage 4, and they're so surprised that all of a sudden they're like, I thought I was doing so well. And now I'm just so sad. Grieving is a huge part of this. And you're grieving, it's not a setback at all. It's because you truly acknowledge and realize and face that old you is done. That old relationship is done. Now, does it have the potential to create something entirely new and better? 100%. Whether you rebuild, and I'll close the loop on my story, whether you rebuild yourself and move along, that's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to heal with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new with the
Yes.
person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not
Yeah.
long ago, as two totally rebuilt people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. Never in a billion years would I have ever done that if I didn't truly understand um, how possible transformation is, not just for the betrayed, for the betrayer as well.
And thank you for sharing that personal side of
Mhm.
you, because if someone was, let's say, for example, the question of, well, what would you do? I don't think you really know what would you do. But let someone said, hey, if I was in this relationship and there was infidelity, and
Mhm.
you hear people go, oh, I would be done. I would be
Mhm.
finished.
Mhm.
I don't think you can necessarily say that. And I think you're a perfect testament in saying that that portrayal, you may think you know what you're going to do, but
Mhm.
you don't know until you actually go through it in a way that you're describing to really know what you would do. It's
Well, I was
easy to
done.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was done. That was it,
Mhm,
because I couldn't live with the idea that that was going to be a part of my marriage. So that was done. Now here's the thing: until and unless there's that complete and crash and burn of the old, you can't build the new.
yes.
And
Yes.
it was in it being completely done, and I was healing. Right here, I'm going to show you something. You will never forget this. Ready? So the viewers, you're going to see this clearly. Here's what
Yep.
most people do. They are here. They are. They're betrayed. They're miserable. They're so upset. They just want to feel better again. So they keep getting back with that person or someone absolutely
Yep.
similar.
Very common.
This is
Very
a
common.
stage 3 life. Here's here's what happens when you move through the stages. You're shocked, you're blindsided, you're brokenhearted, and you on your own say, I have no idea what this is going to look like, but I'm moving to stages 4 and stage 5. Now, if you're so committed to this person here, you will only sabotage yourself because you're afraid to outgrow them. But
Yep.
you like it up here. So then what's going to
Mhm.
happen is you're like, why can't they do this? Because they're not ready.
Right.
So the whole idea is you do this, you go to stages 4 and 5 without any idea of what this person's going to do. Now, they could do this as well and say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this person.
Yep.
That's going to be a 2.0 relationship. You
Yep.
can just go your own ways. But if you are so committed as you're up here to this person, you get this sort of thing where it's like, ooh, I'm not really like
Absolutely
this.
correct.
So the whole idea is you do this without any idea what's going to show up. And that was my case. My husband on his own did this. And then together, it was a completely new relationship, new terms, new boundaries, new everything.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for
Mhm.
breaking that down. So we're in stage 4. And have we missed anything in stage 4 to bring us to stage 5?
Yeah, I would just say stage 4 is one of those things. This is the we've all heard the symbol, classic symbol of transformation, the butterfly. When you think about it, the caterpillar doesn't just stick a pair of wings on. It hangs from a branch in order to die to the life it's known. It's willing to be completely emulsified, unrecognizable from anything it once was, only because it was willing to get very uncomfortable, willing not, it just knows whatever's happening in there, does it get to be the butterfly? That's the way transformation works. It's going to be unfamiliar. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're taking the parts you love of yourself, you're leaving behind everything that no longer serves. So it's such a beautiful opportunity. And now I know everybody's thinking I'm crazy saying beautiful. Yes, it is. It's a beautiful opportunity to look at who you've been and say, you know what? I don't like that I didn't uh, stand up enough, or I don't like that I didn't speak about my needs enough, or I don't like that I just allowed, for whatever to go on. I don't like that I wasn't honest about what I need. And I'm not doing that going forward. And it's that whole process that creates a version of you that never would have had the opportunity to be created had the experience not happened.
Yeah, that is really beautifully said. And I'm glad you said beautiful because I have gone through your stages, and I have gone through stage 5. And for you to say beautiful, that resonated with me because it did feel beautiful. It felt peaceful, it felt beautiful, it felt empowering.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, if I didn't go through your particular stages, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast today.
Yeah.
To get the strength to do that. So, or to even have these level of deep conversations. So, I hope someone does say she's crazy or we're both crazy and not understand the beautiful, because if one person just listens and they're even interested to know that there is a beautiful moment at the end of uh of the betrayal, not, and you're not ending the betrayal, I don't mean in that way, but to go through this beautiful experience through the
Mhm.
betrayal, uh, I think that's a wonderful way to say it.
Yeah, and stage 5 is all about healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. I mean, you self love, self care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. You're making new rules, new boundaries. It is so common to see new levels of health, new relationships, new businesses being birthed, new passion projects. You didn't have the bandwidth for that when you were stuck in your trauma. And also the 4 legs of the table. In the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the spiritual and the emotional too. Those are the 5 stages. And you know what it's like? I always use this analogy. Imagine 2 best friends and they're both 30 pounds overweight. They're fine, right? They look great. They're getting through their day. They're doing okay. And then one day, one friend says, I'm so done with the extra 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And she just goes off in this new healthy eating, new exercise direction. And she loses the weight. Now she's wearing clothes she chooses versus what fits. She has more energy. She's sort of living that life. And she says to the other person, her best friend, who still has the 30 pounds on her, come on, it's so great over here. And the other
Yeah.
person's like, I'm fine. And the truth is, she is. But if she had an idea, an inkling of what it felt like over, with the 30 pounds gone, she wouldn't waste her time, with the 30 pounds. That's the thing. But it wasn't easy to get there, but worth it? Definitely.
Oh, it was definitely worth it. And for my journey, I certainly didn't have your program, but through my journey, I went through my own executive coaching, and I went through my own therapy experience. So, all I can say is you do not have to feel in a hostage situation with your betrayal, because it's a lot of weight to carry, no matter if it's actual weight, mental weight, any of that. It's really a lot to carry. And I'm so thrilled for you to break that down in that analogy. I wanted for sure be sensitive to our time. uh, I have the listeners and the viewers are founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, industry leaders, that are going through life with something, with
Mhm.
something. And if you're not, great. That's what you. What what is it that you could really share? Because I feel in companies. That, or people that have left a very toxic work environment, let's say, to want to start their own business, and why I mentioned the founders and entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
um but they've left their business to start this, but part of their struggle and really getting things off the ground is really hard. So there's kind of the founder entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and then there's a situation too, and these may be two separate answers, of course. But you mentioned earlier in the podcast about people in companies, for
Yep.
example, not performing to the best of their ability.
Mhm.
And we look at that as they could be lazy, they don't want to do the job, when really there could be more behind the
Yep.
story.
Yep.
How do you feel we could do better in companies and education?
Mhm.
And how do you feel some inspiration for the entrepreneur and founder that is still carrying that toxic work environment, which could be from betrayal,
Yep.
in helping them move forward?
Sure. That's why I just wrote my 8th book, the Betrayal Recovery Roadmap. It's for businesses. It's for the person who's not showing up as powerfully as they need to. It's, here's what happens. It looks like burnout. It looks like absenteeism. It looks like disengagement. It looks like low morale, low productivity. And very often it's an unhealed betrayal. I mean, we have so many people the reason why I wrote this book is we have so many people who come into the PBT Institute saying, I'm going to lose my job. I can't hold it together. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I'm a salesperson. I can't make sales. I'm not, I'm not on my game. My boss is starting to catch on. Or if if you are an entrepreneur, you need to promote your product or service, but you can't because you're not showing up the way you need to. You're distracted. You can't focus. You can't sleep. You're exhausted. So it's showing up in business everywhere. I mean, enough for me to write this book because it's
Yeah.
profound. It's profound. And what companies do is, and it's not their fault, they don't know. They're sending their employees to, let's say to therapy. And what they're unknowingly doing is actually paying to keep them stuck. Where companies pay the most in stress related symptoms, illnesses, conditions, disease, what they're doing is reinforcing stage 3. And so, what we're trying to do now is really get into companies because when people move through the stages, they heal from every symptom of post betrayal syndrome, every one of them.
And they absolutely do. And I want to make sure, please know that all of your company information as well as your books, I will make sure that is in this podcast description. Dr. Debbie Silber, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, your vulnerability, and the absolute wonderful work that you were doing. And I was very thrilled and honored to have you on this podcast. So thank you so much again. And that wraps up today's episode of On Conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Allison, and keep challenging the norm and striving for excellence in all you do. Dr. Debbie Silber, thank you very much again for all your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for streaming the On Conversations podcast, the space where unconventional excellence takes center stage and spotlights global visionaries who don't just follow the rules, they reinvent them. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. If you felt the onward effect, don't just scroll, unleash your support. Unsubscribe from silence. Hit that follow, drop a like, and leave a comment to keep the On Conversations going and amplifying the voices that are shaping the future. Looking for our podcast? Don't worry, it's all in the show's description. Tune in to the next episode of On Conversations, where we unmute the truth and uncover the unexpected.